Hello friends and welcome to today's topic. So today we are going to talk about somatic embryogenesis. Again, it is taken from the course Plant Biotechnology. RBT 602 is the code, and I'm recording it for the students of BTech Biotechnology who are studying in their sixth semester. Now it is also equally important for the other students who are studying the Plant Biotechnology in their UG or PG program. More content in a short video is the whole purpose of recording these lectures. So hope you will find it interesting. So let's start this topic. So the first thing that we're going to discuss here is the embryo. So let me show you the content of the lecture first. First, we're going to discuss the embryo. Second, we're going to talk about the embryogenesis. Thirdly, we're going to discuss the explant and the application and limitations of somatic embryogenesis and the organogenesis versus embryogenesis. So here it is the content of the lecture. So let's start this topic. First, we need to understand the embryo. Now, what is an embryo? As we all know that embryo is the developmental figure that comes out from the zygote, and you may also call it as fertilized egg cell. So by definition, we can say the embryo is made up of actively growing cells, and the term is normally used to describe the early formation of tissues in the first stage of growth. Now you all may have your own definition of embryo, so need not to worry about just one definition of an embryo. Now let's discuss the features of an embryo. Now what are the features of an embryo? Because it is important for us to understand the features of an embryo. Until unless we understand the feature of an embryo, we cannot say that in tissue culture whether the cell is behaving like an embryo or it is simply an organ formation. So thus we need to understand the features of the embryo first. So as far as embryo features are concerned, we can say the embryo has a bipolar axis. Remember this statement and the feature of an embryo, that embryo is of having the bipolar axis. The shoot meristeme at one end of the axis and the root meristeme at the other end of the axis, with the hypocotyls in the middle, and it also has the cotyledons. So all the features that an embryo has. Thirdly, we can discuss the type of an embryo. The types of an embryo, as far as the types of an embryo is concerned, we can find the classification of an embryo types given by the Colin Beck in 1978. So he classified the embryos into two categories, zygotic and the non-zygotic embryos. Now, what are the zygotic embryos? As their name indicates, the zygote further develops into an embryo. Zygote, which is the result of fertilized egg cell, so it starts developing further to make an embryo, is called a zygotic embryo. So we can say it is formed by the fertilized egg cell or the zygote. Then the non-zygotic embryos, again the non-zygotic embryos are formed by the cells other than the zygote. So if any cell other than the zygote is forming an embryo, we will call it a non-zygotic embryo. Now, what are the different types of non-zygotic embryo? You should remember the different types of non-zygotic embryos, such as somatic embryos, parthenogenetic embryos, and the androgenic embryos. Let's discuss all these embryo types. Somatic embryos are the embryos which are formed from the sporophytic cells or the somatic cells, except the zygote, either in vitro or in vivo. Remember that it is not only restricted up to in vitro experimentation, but in vivo also you can find the somatic embryo produced on plants. Then we have the parthenogenetic embryos. These are the embryos formed by the unfertilized egg cell. Then we have androgenic embryos. Androgenic embryos are those embryos formed by the male gametophyte, that is microspore or the pollen grain. Now after the three types, androgenic, parthenogenetic and somatic embryos, which are the types of the non-zygotic embryos, we have completed the types of an embryo. Now let's see further. It is an ovule structure, which you all might have studied in your 12th standard. So need not to discuss it further because we're going to discuss more about the embryogenesis here. So let's discuss the embryogenesis. Embryogenesis is the process of development of plant embryos. Now in this we are going to talk about the types of embryogenesis and the differences between zygotic and somatic embryos. So let's first discuss the types of embryogenesis. Now as the two types of embryos we have studied, so are the two types of embryogenesis. First one is the zygotic embryogenesis and the second one is the somatic embryogenesis. So somatic embryogenesis is our topic. So we're going to also have a look on zygotic embryogenesis here. So zygotic embryogenesis is again the formation of embryo from the zygote. So it is a very simple one, which is the result of fertilization, double fertilization of the ovule, forming the plant embryo, and the endosperm which together go on to develop a seed. And this process is known as zygotic embryogenesis. Now, do you also know that the seed may also develop without fertilization through the pathways, which is referred to as, now if you have the answer, you can please check it once. The pathway is called as apomixis. Now let's move further. What is somatic embryogenesis? Now the whole topic is on somatic embryogenesis, so we're going to detail it further here. So somatic embryogenesis, that means the somatic embryo formation from the somatic cells or the process of making of somatic embryos. So the somatic embryos, which are referred by many names, such as the embryo-like structures or adventitious or vegetative embryos. So wherever you are finding these terms in place of somatic embryos, you should mark them correct, because all these names are given to the somatic embryos, whether it is adventitious embryo or the vegetative embryo, or sometimes embryoids also is the term used for to define the somatic embryos. And the process equally named as adventitious, asexual or somatic embryogenesis. Then let's discuss the different stages of somatic embryogenesis here. Now we find the different stages of somatic embryo development, and we classify them into three categories, like the induction, development and maturation. Now, what do we mean by induction? Remember that we are talking about the in vitro somatic embryogenesis, in which the somatic embryo formation takes place in these different stages: induction, development, and maturation. Let's discuss all these three one by one. Induction, development, and maturation. What happens during these stages, and what are the conditions, or you may say the physicochemical condition requires to develop an embryo in vitro, induction of an embryo in vitro to make it develop further, and for the maturation of an embryo. So here we are going to discuss the physicochemical condition required for all these three different stages. It is first the induction. Now remember that induction requires for auxin, which is mainly the rooting hormone, but here it is also known as main calcing hormone, and the example is 2,4-D, which is mostly used. And you can also see that different types of the auxins like NA, dicamba are also used for the induction of somatic embryogenesis response in different plant species. Now after induction, comes the development. Now development means that after the induction of an embryogenic response, it has to develop further to complete the embryogenic embryogenesis and to gain the typical structure of an embryo. So for this development, there is no requirement of auxin. Remember that for induction we require auxin, but for development further we don't require any auxin, and it has to be removed from the medium, because the continuous auxin will going to inhibit the embryogenesis. And all the stages that the embryo gains here is mostly equivalent to the zygotic embryogenesis. So what these stages are: the globular stage embryo, the heart-shaped embryo, and the torpedo stage embryo. You may also add one more stage, that is the cotyledonary stage embryo. So globular stage embryo, as its name indicates, the embryo is small and round, and it is multicellular in nature. Then it is the heart-shaped embryo. Heart-shape, again, as its name indicates, the feature is that it has bilateral symmetry, and the shape changes to a heart shape with more cotyledon development. So cotyledon development gives this stage a heart shape. Then we have the torpedo shape stage, and it consists of the initial cell for the shoot and root meristem. So under development, we see that the induced cell, which commits to further develop into an embryo, undergoes these different stages, which is the globular stage, heart shape, and the torpedo stage embryo. And it further leads to the maturation of an embryo. Now maturation means the now let's first discuss the condition required for the maturation. Maturation requires complete maturation means the complete maturation with the apical meristem, radicle, and cotyledons. Okay, and it is often obtained from the repetitive embryony. Sometimes we also many times it also results in this repetitive embryony. Storage protein production is also there, and we see that oftenly the ABA, which is the abscisic acid, which is the stress hormone, is mostly requires for the normal embryo maturation, and later on it completes its maturation and further undergoes the germination. So here we have seen the three developmental stages of a somatic embryo. These are induction, development, and maturation. Remember the physicochemical condition again required at these three different stages in vitro. Here we can see the diagrammatic presentation of the different stages. Like here, it is the callus which is having some meristematic cells which become totipotent and commit to form the somatic embryos. Now, after this induction, since at this point of induction, the oxygen is required, and we have seen that 2,4-D has its main role. Now, after this induction, the cell further divides to make a globular stage embryo. And before the globular stage embryo develops, so we can find this type of the pro-embryo, which we called as early pro-embryo. Then as and when it divides further and gain this, its typical spherical shape, then it is termed as globular somatic embryo. See that this particular embryo, whatever the embryo shape is, it is attached to this callus. And as you can see in this picture, it is clearly marked that this callus and the embryo is having no vascular connection there. So remember that once we're going to discuss the differences between the organogenesis and embryogenesis, at that point we're going to detail it further, that what are the differences between the embryogenic response from a callus and the organogenic response from a callus. So here you can mark one difference at least, that these embryogenic features or the embryogenic masses are not having any vascular connection with the callus from which they have originated. So one cell committed and divide further to make an embryo. So after the globular stage, it forms an hard stage embryo where the cotyledon has started formation. Cotyledon formation has started, and gradually that develops into a torpedo stage embryo, and we can also we soon find them in the form of this cotyledonary stage embryo. So these are the different developmental stages of an embryo, like the early pro-embryo, which is just a mass of cell, gains a globular stage embryo, then the heart-shaped embryo, then the torpedo shaped embryo, and the cotyledonary stage embryo. Now, after these different stages of embryo, let's further discuss the roots of embryogenesis. It is again important since we're talking about the somatic embryogenesis, and we have said that we can have them in vitro and in vivo. So irrespective of that, we can also find the in vitro embryogenesis in the form of direct embryogenesis and indirect embryogenesis. Now, what do we mean by direct embryogenesis and indirect embryogenesis? Let's discuss it further. Direct embryogenesis means when the embryo formation takes place directly on an explant material and there is no callus phase. Remember, there is no callus phase. Direct means direct on explant. Okay, there is no callus formation. In direct somatic embryos, the embryoids are formed directly from a cell or a small group of cells without the production of an intervening callus. So it is the only thing that you should remember here in regard to direct somatic embryogenesis. Here we can cite few examples of direct somatic embryogenesis. There are a number of plants in which the direct somatic embryogenesis has been observed, like the Coffea arabica, alfalfa, Daucus carota, Ranunculus sceletrus, Linium, Brassica, and other species also. Here you can see a picture showing the direct somatic embryogenesis from an explanted material. You can see the direct embryos are protruding out. So this kind of response in vitro is called the direct embryogenesis. Then we can have the indirect embryogenesis. Like indirect embryogenesis is just opposite to the direct embryogenesis. Here the callus phase is there because the explant first develops into a callus, and from callus we get the embryo form. So callus becomes embryogenic in this case, and hence we can say it is an indirect embryogenesis because it is not directly from the explant material. Now, by definition, we can say in indirect somatic embryogenesis, callus is first produced from the explant. Embryos can then be produced from the callus tissue or from a cell suspension produced from the callus. So again, further, the examples of direct somatic embryogenesis, a number of plant has been researched by now, and a number of tree species also have been researched where somatic embryogenesis through indirect approach has been practiced. So need not to name any plant or species here at this point. Still, you can have these examples to be cited under the indirect somatic embryogenesis. Then we have somatic embryogenesis via similarly, the indirect somatic embryogenesis, that in this picture it is shown that how the callus is actually forming the somatic embryos here. Now these are the two different types of indirect and direct somatic embryogenesis, which you have seen as the root of somatic embryogenesis. Now let's further discuss the types of embryogenic cells. You must be wondering that there are the different types of cells. If yes, there are different types of embryogenic cells. These are the two types: pre-embryogenic determining cells and the induced embryogenic determining cells, or IEDCs. So what are these PEDC and IEDC? You can easily guess the features of these different cells by their name. Pre-embryogenic determined cells, that means these embryogenic cells are predetermined to make an embryo, and we usually find them in the direct embryogenic response, where the explant is having the embryogenic cells there. So these cells are committed to embryonic development and needs only to be released. Okay, such cells are found in the embryonic tissues. Then we have the induced embryogenic determined cells, IEDCs, where we can have the induction of embryonic response. Like the non-embryonic cells can further be developed into an embryonic cells just by the treatment of certain hormones, like auxin we have seen is having the major role in induction of embryonic response. So, and we do find that in majority of cases, somatic embryogenesis is through indirect method, and specific growth regulator conditions and or culture conditions are required for initiation of the callus, and then redetermination of these cells into embryonic pattern of development. So now, by now you know the two cell types which are embryonic cell types: pre-embryonic determined cells, PEDCs, and the induced embryonic determined cells. Now here is one question for you. Here I'm naming just one type, neomorphs. So you need to find the answer, what are neomorphs and what are the features of these neomorphs. Now, can we say something about the general rules for the induction of somatic embryos? Yes, there are some general rules for the induction of somatic embryos. Since we are practicing the in vitro somatic embryogenesis, so we can have some general rules also. Like we already stated that high auxin concentration is often required for embryo induction. Remember auxin, and the main auxin is 2,4-D, 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid. And for further development, the embryos, auxin concentration should be lowered or completely eliminated. Again, this we have already stated. Gibberellins and ethylene usually inhibit embryogenesis. Remember this. And callus from the juvenile plants are also equally more efficient for embryogenesis. So juvenile explant are more responsive towards somatic embryogenic response. Then we have seen that reduced nitrogen in the form of ammonium ions can be an important factor in the embryogenesis. And light generally promotes embryogenesis. High temperature usually favors the somatic embryogenesis. Coconut milk often promotes somatic embryogenesis. Abscisic acid, which exerts a number of striking effect on embryonic somatic embryos on suspension culture. We have already seen that ABA or abscisic acid has its effect on embryo maturation. Then the physiological state of the plant is also very important, from which explant we have taken the material, and again the plant genotype is also sometimes very decisive, and it is also sometimes the seasonal dependency is also there. Now the factors associated in somatic embryogenesis, as far as the factors are concerned, like the things we have named just, the media component. As far as the media component is there, scientists have found that half normal concentration of media component promotes the without the phytohormones actually promotes the somatic embryogenic response. The light, temperature, etc. has also found important, like light intensities, particular wavelength, and photoperiod moderate and stimulate the formation of development of embryoids. So all these different things, again I'm not saying that you have to mug up all these different things, but at least you can remember the few points, whether the light is required or whether what kind of temperature conditions are required, and as far as media is concerned, what type of media and the phytohormones are actually promoting the somatic embryogenic response. In general, you can at least remember these few points. Then some of the exudates or extracts like the tomato, banana, yeast, coconut, always found to have some positive effect on in vitro responses. So is also on the somatic embryogenic response. Then we have some other constituents like the amount of dissolved oxygen. and it also has some effect or it can also influence us since it can influence the osmotic value, so it also has some effect on somatic embryogenic response. Then activated charcoal, again remember that activated charcoal is also reported to increase the embryogenesis. I'm just going to leave it here because there can be number of factors and scientists have researched so many factors in case of somatic embryogenesis. So here we have discussed the two types, somatic embryogenesis and the zygotic embryogenesis as a type of embryogenesis. Let's further discuss the differences between the zygotic and the somatic embryogenesis. Here I'm not going to give you a very detailed overview of this difference, but as you can see in these pictures that the zygotic embryo development is there. It is shown here that from the single cells the further development takes place and it forms the all typical stages of the embryo development, like we find the globular, heart-shaped, torpedo shape, and the mature cotyledonary stage embryo. Similarly, we also find the same development pattern in the somatic embryos, where the somatic cell further undergoes the development in the same way. Now, regarding the explant, because if you want to induce an response in vitro, then explant is a very decisive factor. And what kind of explant will show the response towards somatic embryogenesis? This we need to understand. So, since many an experiment has been taking place, and scientists have reported it for different types of the plant species, that different types of the material or the explant is important for the somatic embryogenic response. So, in general, we can say the explant pieces of organ, leaves, stem, root, cotyledons, specific cell types, leaf tissue, pollen, endosperm, miscellaneous, and other portions taken from a plant that will be used to initiate a culture. Okay, so in this you will find that majority of the explant type we have included here. So it is just a matter to practice it with any of the plant material, that what type of explant material is responsive towards somatic embryogenic response. But only one condition we can give here, that the material should be highly juvenile. Now let's talk about the application or advantages of somatic embryogenesis. If you have gone through the applications of micropropagation, then you already know that the somatic embryogenesis offers an immense potential to speed up the clonal propagation. Okay, so it is one of the best embryogenic micropropagation pathway through which we can produce the clone, since the plants are bipolar in nature and they further mature and develops into a complete plant. And the second application of these is that being single cell in origin, this is possible to automate the large scale production of embryos. So we can also have the scaling up of these embryos in bioreactors, and then we can further go for production of the synthetic seed from these embryos by encapsulating them in a sodium alginate bead. Then it also allows the development, direct development into complete plantlet without any need of further rooting stage, which is generally the requirement of shoot induction, which is followed by the rooting, and then we go for the hardening and acclimatization of the plant in order to get the complete plantlet produced. So it actually shortens that cycle. Then we also see that since the embryos are epidermal single cell origin, which favors the process of plant transformation also. So if we want to practice any transformation experiment, somatic embryogenic cultures are more suitable material than. It is also to be used for the production of metabolites in species where embryos are the reservoir of important biochemical compound. Now again, you can take it as one of the question, what kind of metabolites are being produced by the somatic embryos in cultures. The production of artificial seeds using the somatic embryos is an obvious choice for efficient transport and storage. Remember that we can have these somatic embryos produced in a very at large scale, and in just a very small vessel we can carry them from one place to other place. So actually they are making it very convenient to transport the material and also for the storage of it. Next is the embryo culture technique is applied to overcome the embryo abortion. So remember that this type of method is also there. The seed dormancy and the self-sterility in plant can also be overcome with the help of this embryogenic somatic embryogenic response. or you can also find it equally important for the zygotic embryo culture. Now let's discuss the disadvantages or the limitations of somatic embryogenesis. So we can say that the final field response of these embryos were not found to be very promising, and we can say the complete conversion into plantlets or poor germination of embryos is a major limitation of somatic embryogenesis. It has been practiced, it has been seen in many plant species, and therefore the process of germination needs to be studied in detail for successful plantlet conversion. We can say that still we are having some limitations here with the somatic embryogenic response. Compared to other plant species, active research on somatic embryogenesis involving the forest trees has been very slow. So as I said that for tree species, somatic embryogenesis is actually very promising, and it has to be studied still for many of the forest tree species. The paucity of knowledge controlling the somatic embryogenesis, again, the synchrony of somatic embryo development and the low frequency of true to type embryonic efficiencies, these are responsible for its reduced commercial application. So again, you can see that somatic embryogenesis is having other problems also associated with the culturing of it. And to obtain the complete conversion into plantlet, it is necessary to provide optimum nutritive and environmental condition. Of course, it is not very easy to get the somatic embryogenic response and to maintain them and to further complete their development and maturation in vitro. So it requires lots of expertise and lots of experimentation to complete a somatic embryogenesis protocol for a plant species and to find the plant developed successfully in vitro. Organogenesis versus embryogenesis. This is the last topic we can discuss here. Organogenesis versus embryogenesis, though it is the topic you will see important only for the routine examinations, but here you can have some discussion also. Embryos, as I said, that embryo is a bipolar structure rather than a monopolar one, which is usually the characteristic of a bird that comes out from a callus. Embryos arises from a single cell. As I have mentioned previously, that embryos are arising from a single cell. It has no vascular connection with the maternal callus tissue or the cultured explant. On the other hand, during organogenesis, shoot or root develops from a group of cells, resulting into chimera formation, which later establishes strong connection with the maternal tissue. If someone is having any difficulty in understanding how the organogenesis results in the chimera formation, we can have a detailed discussion on that also. Further induction of somatic embryogenesis requires a single hormonal signal to induce a bipolar structure capable of forming a complete plant. While in case of embryogenesis, it requires two different hormonal signals to induce shoot first and then the root organ. So it is the usual practice of organogenesis that we first induce the shoots, and then after the shoot multiplication, we go for rooting of those shoots to complete the plant plant production. While in case of somatic embryogenesis, only single hormone induction is responsible for giving it bipolar structure, which simultaneously forms the shoot and root both, and it actually leads to the complete plantlet production after maturation. So thus it is fast and easiest approach of micropropagation as compared to the organogenesis. On several other terms, we can discuss both these organogenesis and embryogenesis on monetary basis, on time scale, on the basis of expertise. Also, we can discuss the differences between the organogenesis and embryogenesis. I hope that I should limit this lecture up to these points only. Hope you found it interesting. So thanks for watching the video.